Hello everyone. Welcome to today's webinar at Notes Code. Our topic today is speed up your XPages application performance. Our presenter today is Lakshmi Sankaran from Marga Systems. Just a reminder that we will record this webinar so that you can share it with colleagues, or if you want to watch a replay later on, you can do so. The link to the webinar will be sent to you directly from Marga Systems for the replay. We also will have, if time permits, a question and answer session at the end of Lakshmi's presentation. If you expand your GoToMeeting panel control using the red button with the white arrow, you can find a section called Questions. You can type in your questions at any time, and then they'll be queued up for me to read back to Lakshmi at the end of her presentation. So, Lakshmi, we appreciate your time. The time is now yours. I'm going to change the screen control to you so that you can do your presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Scott.
Okay, I see your screen.
Okay.
You're ready to go.
Okay. So good morning, everyone. So first of all, I welcome everyone who's present for this webinar. So I'm Lakshmi Sankaran, who will be taking you for the next 40 minutes to 1 hour on the topic of how to speed up your performance in XPages applications. So I work as a project lead in Marga Systems. I take care of projects both in the application maintenance and the development space across Notes Client, Web, and XPages Applications. So I've also authored a white paper, the link of which is given here on 9 things to do on how to take your Lotus Domino applications mobile. So that's a brief introduction about me. So with that, let me just set the context for today's session. So we'll be discussing about the general application modernization and what is the need for performance, why do we have to stress more on the performance, and what are the best practices that would contribute to improving the performance both at the server level and at the application level. And also we'll be touching upon some commonly faced bottlenecks when you deploy or maintain your XPages applications, and fixes or workarounds for those. And we will also be discussing about some tools which are really valuable and useful during your development process to test your performance or identify these bottlenecks. At the end of it, we can take some question and answers before we finally wrap it up. So with this context in mind, let us get into the today's session. Okay. As XPages developers, when we're developing XPages applications, typically it comes as part of an application modernization exercise, where the customer approaches you, the customer who has an existing portfolio of Lotus applications, approaches you for modernizing their client for various reasons. Probably they want to get rid of client licenses, they want to move the applications to web to exploit the Web 2.0 standards and features, and also open their applications to a wide set of users, maybe to different devices, etc. So when the IT or the business starts this application migration or the modernization exercise, it typically starts with a pilot where we as a vendor, we are in a stage where we need to deliver and excel in the small pilot project that we're going to do. So at this stage, the execution of the pilot is the success of the pilot is very critical, because the whole future of the application modernization roadmap is dependent on the success of the first pilot that is being done. So from the business perspective, the success of the first pilot is very critical, and from a vendor perspective, how well we deliver the XPages application, more so the fact because that's going to be the first application that you're going to roll out if it's a first pilot that is taken in the modernization exercise. So there are a lot of things that contribute to the success. There are certain parameters that need to be watched out for at the server level and also at the application level when we are rolling out the XPages applications. So when I say success is very critical when you execute an XPages pilot, the performance plays a major role on how well an application is received by the user. So the well it is received, the more you feel that success is there, and the future roadmap for the next set of applications to be modernized also falls in place subsequently. So that's why we have to really be very cautious about this and lay a lot of weightage into performance and make sure that the application that we are delivering is able to match the user expectations. Because when we are, when the user is migrating from a client application to a XPage web-based application, there will be a lot of expectations to the user in terms of the speed. They would be willing to match the speed as that of a Notes client application, and there will be a lot of expectations in terms of look and feel, how it will be received and all that. So during this course, several conflicts might occur as we developers in getting the user expectations matched. What we will be discussing in the next sections is like how to really address the different conflicts and how to maintain the different parameters so that we are able to match the expectations of the user. So when we say performance, we saw that performance is very critical in success of any applications. When we say performance, there are various factors that contribute to the performance, right, at the server level, at the network level, how it is being used, etc. So like if a server is like being accessed from a data center, how well the network is there, how fast, or the network speed, bandwidth, and latency, everything contributes to the performance. The performance cannot be achieved more than what a network can do. So network speed also plays a major role. And how your server is equipped to handle applications, like whether it has got the necessary or recommended hardware or software so that it can support the XPages applications with the expected performance. And the user community also plays some role in designing your applications. Like when we are designing our applications, we need to be aware of these things so that we can keep in mind during the design stages, and we can decide on the best architecture that is suitable for that applications. Suppose, for example, if the application is going to be used by a wider user community, there will be a lot of concurrent users, and the load will be heavy on the application. So these things should be taken into mind during the design stages so that these things get handled well when the application is deployed. So and also the size of the application and the amount of transaction that happens in the application also needs to be taken into account when we are designing the application. Finally, all this said and done, even though we set our servers and the network, everything is up to the up to the mark to give the best speed that is possible. How it is handled in the code plays a very vital role in impacting the performance of the applications. We have to really ensure that all the standards and all the performance optimization parameters are taken, and all the variables and all the items are handled properly in your code so that the application can scale and perform well at different point of time. So, so in the next subsequent slides, we'll be discussing about what needs to be done at different levels so that we can achieve the best performance. So we'll be mainly concentrating on the server level settings that need to be done, and also at the application level. So network related things may not be part of our scope, because if the network cannot give you a good speed, then it is part of the administrator, who will then network administrator, who will then take care of the request from there. So what we'll be mainly concentrating on are the server level settings that can be done, and also some of the changes that can be done at the application level, and what are the tools that will enable you to identify some common bottlenecks so that it can be handled during the testing stages before it is deployed to production. Okay, so at the server level, there are these are the things that need to be watched out for, more so if it's a first application, first XPage application that is being rolled out at your customer site. What are the hardware and software configurations, and what are the settings that need to be done, and notes.ini that needs to be watched out for if an XPage application is rolled out, and also the Xsp properties file, some of the important properties that really impact the performance of the application. So going to the hardware and the software configuration, 64-bit OS is always recommended. The fact being, I can narrate my experience that I had in deploying one of the applications. Like 32-bit Domino has a limit on setting the HTTP heap size. Even though your server has a lot of RAM, like 4 GB or 5 GB, you still have a limit on the maximum size that can be set if your Domino, if it is a 32-bit Domino running on a 32-bit OS. That is why for higher performance, to achieve higher performance, it is always recommended to have a 64-bit OS and a 64-bit Domino on top of it, so that you can completely exploit the benefits of the extra RAM that you have. So if you can afford to give a lot of RAM, it's always better you give a lot of RAM to the server so that a lot of memory can be allocated to the HttpJVMMaxHeapSize. So more the RAM, more the heap size, and better the performance would be, and less likely you will face any memory issues when executing the XPages applications. Another important thing to look out for, and this actually, like we faced this, like we had an XPages application which was deployed on a 32-bit Domino. The configurations of the server were very good. It had a 6 GB RAM, so we had issues with memory, so we tried to increase the HttpJVMMaxHeapSize to 1 GB or something. But the Domino HTTP never restarted. HTTP never started. It failed to initialize. The reason being, on a 32-bit Domino, it cannot take more than 512 MB. So that's the reason we need to have a 64-bit OS if we have a strategy for a lot of XPages applications in place. And also, it is always better, we need to do some kind of a balancing on deploying applications on the server. So if, it's always better to isolate memory intensive applications such as Traveler and other highly used applications from the server, so that it does not affect the performance of the rest of the applications that are hosted on the same server. For example, if there's a Traveler, as you know, it's a very memory intense application, so it's always better that it is installed on a separate server so that other applications on the server do not get affected by the presence of Traveler. So these are the things that we need to watch out for in the at the server level with respect to the hardware and software. And the next thing that we will see is what are the settings that we need to watch out for in the notes.ini file. So for each server, there will be a notes.ini file, and these are the two variables that need to be set. One is the HttpJVMMaxHeapSize. So as a rule of thumb, how much ever your RAM is, you can set your HttpJVMMaxHeapSize to 1/4 of your available RAM. If your RAM has if your server has 4 GB RAM, then you can always set it to 1 GB, and you can make sure that the server has the JVM heap is allocated 1 GB, and your XPages applications will have better performance, free of out-of-memory errors, and so on and so forth. It is just not enough if you set the HttpJVMMaxHeapSize. There is other parameter called HttpJavaMaxHeapSize, which needs to be set to 1. The reason being, if you don't set it to 1, every time the server restarts, the HttpJVMMaxHeapSize gets reverted back to the default value. As you know, for 851 server, the default was 256 M, whereas from 852 onwards, I think the default is changed to 64 M. So suddenly, if you face some out-of-memory exceptions after migrating your servers, the reason may be like, your HttpJVMMaxHeapSize would have got reset from the previous value, and that could be causing the issues for raising a lot of memory errors in the log. So when you face such kind of errors, it is always better you go and check this notes.ini and see what is the value that is being set on the HttpMaxHeapSize, and also whether MaxHeapSize set is set to 1 to make sure that the size is set in the same value that you have set. So these are the two variables that you need to watch out for in the notes.ini setting. And the other thing is, like, there is something called the Xsp properties file. 1 second. So I think it's okay. Xsp properties, as you know, this Xsp properties can be set both at the server level and also at the application level. What we set at the server level applies globally to all the applications that is present on the server, whereas what is applied on the application level is only specific to the application where it is applied. So this Xsp properties seem to play a major role in the performance, which I have experienced myself in one of the applications. So where we could bring down the response time from, to the tune of, like, we could reduce the response time to, we could make it at least 60 to 70% faster than when the application was behaving without these properties being set. So there is something called runtime optimized JavaScript, where you can aggregate the CSS and JavaScript resources and also specify the compressed mode to achieve better performance. And there is also something called page persistence. So you can choose whether to keep your pages in memory or disk. So it's purely our call, and it has to be decided very carefully, because for small number of users, keeping the pages in memory will not cause any memory issues. But if it is a large user group, then keeping pages in memory would be a problem, because at some point of time you might get memory leaks. So for better performance, keeping the pages in memory is always recommended. But if your application has to be scalable and also performance efficient, then keeping pages in disk is what is recommended. There are also some other properties which I will show you in the next slide, like what other properties that can be set. So application or session timeout is also one thing that we need to watch out for, so that we prevent the inactivity of the application when it is kept unattended for quite some time. So here, if you can see in the slide, I've given a link which explains in detail about each and every Xsp property that is available to set. So in the next slide, you can see a sample Xsp properties file. As I said, it can be set both at the server level. At the server level, there will be a sample file. If it is not already set, you need to make a copy of that sample, get these properties in place, and then save it. If it has to be done at the application level, then there is an Xsp file which can be seen in the Java perspective. I'll show you in the next slide. So these are the properties that I've been explaining you in the previous slide, like how to set the persistence, what's the application timeout. It can vary from few minutes to few hours. It depends purely on the kind of application that you're rolling out, and what does how long the application needs to stay active, or how long the session stays active. I will give a classic example for this timeout in the subsequent slides when I actually talk about that. There's a very nice example that I can give you, so that we can easily relate to how important setting these timeout intervals are. So as I said, this resource.aggregate equal to true and compress mode really gives a very good performance, because all the XPages applications will have a lot of SSJs and Java CSS script libraries. So this properties really help to improve the performance of the XPages applications. So this I've just given a sample properties, like the link that I showed in the previous slide. We can get complete information about why we are setting this property and what is the significance of that property. So it's a good reading actually. So this slide shows you like where you can set the Xsp properties file in your designer. So for particular database, go to the Java perspective, and there is something called web content webinf inside that Xsp properties file. What is blocked in blue is the sample properties that I showed you. So if you really set these kind of properties, this is what will be set in the Xsp properties, which you can see by right-clicking your application properties and go to the XPages tab. You will find these things like keep pages in memory is there, compression mode, encoding, etc. So you can do it both ways. Either you can directly edit, go to the application properties, go to the XPages tab and do the settings that you want, or edit your Xsp properties file and set the necessary values there. So two ways you can do when you have to set the properties file in your application. This setting these properties really increases the performance of the application at least to 70%, 80%, which I have experienced in my own execution itself. Okay. So now that we saw what are the things that need to be done at the server level in terms of hardware or the software or the notes INI. I think there is a speed this thing coming up. Sorry for the interruption. And also in terms of the Xsp properties file. So yeah, after setting this, you would see a remarkable difference in the performance of your applications. Some cases, even after this, even after setting all this, there will be still some issues in the performance, which means definitely there is some scope for improvement in your application in terms of optimizing your code, or in terms of how we have handled different things like lookups and expensive functions like compute with form, lookups, etc. This is what we will be discussing in the subsequent slides. So more in terms of what are the commonly faced issues when you roll out after post deploying your XPages applications, and what are the fixes and workarounds, what are the kind of optimizations that can be done at different levels. Okay, and we will also be discussing about different tools that can help you do this. So as I said, there will be some commonly faced challenges when you deploy your XPages applications. The challenges may be more if it is a first what you deploy is a first application in the set, because you may not be getting a complete hold of the environment or the server, everything that is there in the customer site. So all these things, if we had known beforehand, we can make a standard checklist so that can be used as a readiness checklist to make sure that everything is in place before you deploy that application. For example, as we saw that we said that for a server, 64-bit is always recommended, and notes.ini, we need to watch out for the 2 variables and these Xsp properties. So these can be part of your checklist, deployment checklist, and before even deploying that application, you can just make sure that all these things are in place so that you know that you will not have any problems later when you actually deploy the applications. Even then also you might face some issues and commonly used, and we can see what I have listed here is based on the experience that I have seen in deploying different applications at different customer places. One of the common errors that we used to see is that out-of-memory exception. As you all know, it is due to the HttpJVMMaxHeapSize is not able to handle so much of things in the memory. So the main thing is to look out for whether the heap size is set properly in your notes.ini. And even after you set, if you still receive the exception, then you know that there may be some problem with the Domino version, Domino, whether it's a 32 or 64. That is the reason that it is not able to take so much of heap size like 1 GB or 2 GB. So these are the 2 places that we need to go and check the moment we receive an out-of-memory exception. After we set the things, once this HTTP is restarted, we will see that out-of-memory exceptions do not come. And the other is the timeouts. We frequently experience timeouts like when you just open the browser with the application homepage and just leave for some time and then come back, and you will see that it would have timeout. So I will tell you a classic example here. We had actually deployed a kind of HR application to one of the customers. This application was open to different user groups, like there were client Xping users, there were web users, there were mobile users, and there were kiosk users. So because of which the application had to be open to anonymous also. So there were challenges because when the session times out and the anonymous access is enabled for an application, we know that there will be a lot of problems because the user will be logged in as anonymous, different functionalities that are specific to the user may not happen. So how do we check out that? So the scenario that actually happened in the customer side was there was something called gate pass approvals which need to be done by the security. The security personnel are those who are deployed at the entrance check-in gates. So they are basically Xping users. So they just open the application. They always keep it open. The application screen will be always open, and whenever they have to issue a gate pass, they'll just open the request, approve it, and then issue the gate pass. So at the time of approval, the session would have timed out. So when you actually have to approve it, so all this session gets timed out and a lot of things go haywire. How do we prevent these kind of situations? Two ways you can do. One, handling in the code itself, making sure that you always check if there is a logged in user, and if there is an anonymous user coming in, prevent him from going further through the process. Other thing is you can watch out for the session timeout. So it can be set at the application level, because this is very specific to the particular application that is being handled, which requires a longer session time interval. Typically, like there will be different shifts in the security, and they might change like once in 5 hours or 6 hours. So if the admin agrees and if your policies do not conflict, the session timeout can be set close to 5 hours so that we don't get these kind of issues. So this is one issue which we faced during our deployment, and this is how we resolved it. So we increased the session timeout to not 5 hours, to less than like 2 to 3 hours, and then also handled in the code in such a way that anonymous users do not get entry further. But however, if it's a kiosk user, he will not have any ID for authentication, in which case anonymous will be allowed. So that places, it will be taken care appropriately. So session timeouts is one which we also need to look out for, like to have the session to make sure that your application is always available and it is not inactive. And the other things that you might face is like higher loading times when you open a page or when you click on something on a page. There are a lot of things that that can contribute to this. So like if your application size is huge, or if your application goes with a lot of transactions and a lot of concurrent users, then if it is not properly handled at the code level, then it might cause some issues with the performance. Like in some cases, if the application is very huge, it carries a lot of documents. For example, if you're rolling out a leave management application to a corporate group which has you say thousands of users, then the amount of transactions that can happen in a week or a day will be very high, because everybody will be using that application and everybody will be trying to act on it, right from the employees to managers and all that. So there will be different views in the application. So over a period of time, this views itself might increase, the index of the views itself might increase in size, and that might contribute at least close to 90% of the application size will be occupied by the views. So we need to see how we can bring down that size. So we need to, these things I'll discuss on the subsequent slides. And also that how the lookups are handled. As we know that DB lookups and get document by key are very time consuming or very expensive operations. We need to be very cautious about using these, especially when you know that application is very huge and it is being used by a large or wider user group, and the concurrent user load is also high. And there are a lot of things that we can take care about partial refreshes. There are a lot of options available, which I will also be discussing later. So we should see how well we can use these partial refreshes so that users are not annoyed about waiting too long to get some update on the screen, and how well we use these scoped variables. We know there are different scope variables that can be used, like application, request, view, session, etc. So subsequent slides we will be touching more on how optimization can be done at the code level, or what different things can be done. So right now we can have a small poll just to understand what are the different tools that you have used during your development process. Scott, can I request you to run the poll?
Okay, we will launch the poll. So the question is, which of the following tools have you used during your development process? Go ahead and, I apologize. I set this up for just one. So select the one you use most often. I apologize, because that should have been a multi-select.
Excuse me. So this is just to understand like how different people are using different kind of tools during their process. So
Yep.
So based on
Great.
that,
Very interesting so far, the results. I can see the results live. I'll share them in just a moment. So let's give 5 more seconds. We have almost 80% of the attendees voting so far.
okay.
All right.
So which is most popular?
And here we go. I'm going to close the poll, and then I'll share the results.
Okay.
And Firebug wins the
Okay.
the poll.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's one of the commonly used tools.
Perfect. All right. I'm going to hide the poll now, the results, and go back to you.
Okay, so Firebug is commonly used, which is expected, and I also expected XPages Tool Box to get some more weightage because that's also one of the wonderful tools that is available. I'm sorry, I think, just a second.
Yeah, while you're switching over there, Lakshmi, also if when you're when that dialog box pops up, if you'll just click the last option, it should go away during your presentation.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's really disturbing, popping up again and again.
Yeah, just click the bottom option and it'll go away.
Yeah, and XPages Toolbox is another great tool that really gives a wealth of information, especially when we are in the performance optimization stage, wherein we need to identify what are the different, where are the places which are really causing problems. ViceFlow is again a very good extension that can be used in Firefox, page speed, extended status bar, etc. So I'll touch upon these tools and how it can be used in the next slides before we actually go into the optimization part. Just a second. Okay. So as you all know, XPages Toolbox, ViceFlow, which is comes as an add-on with the Firefox. I'll take you to the screen where I'll share the ViceFlow and Firefox extended status bar. Okay. One second. On tab. So this is just an application that I opened in my Firefox. What you see in the bottom is the what ViceFlow gives it for you. So how you can install ViceFlow is it comes as an add-on in your Firefox. So you can install both ViceFlow and extended status bar. So both you can add it on your toolbar, restart your Firefox, then it is there for you to use. So for example, if you see here, I can show you how it is profiling. So I'll just click and enter. Okay, I'll log in. So you can see what the ViceFlow is profiling. You can see it down. So it's trying to load, and you can find it here. So this actually gives you a lot of information as to how you are handling the request. So you can see here what is the overall performance rate, how the images are loaded, whether there are any HTTP 404 errors. For example, if you go down, there is one last, there are a lot of things that it gives you, and for each thing it gives you a rating also, which tells what is the scope for improvement. So in between you can say avoid HTTP 404 error. So if there are any HTTP 404 errors, and if you click that, so it will show you what are the actual errors that is there. In this application there are nothing. So if at all there are some 404 errors, this is the best way you can find out what are the errors that are there and go and fix it. So this is very useful. So at the bottom you can see like it gives you the speed and the time it took to open that page, and at the top it gives you an overall rating as to what are the performance level of your page, and in the left it gives you what rating it gives for different categories, like whether it makes good amount of HTTP requests, whether CSS JS is handled properly. So there are a lot of things. You can go through each and every one of them and see where there is actually scope for improvement in your page. And it also gives you a statistics. If you go here, it gives you a statistics as to how the different categories that are there in the left side are actually distributed. So this is a very, very useful tool which can be used. It also has an option to profile. So you can go into one of these tabs. It also has option to profile your memory. Everything is there. So this is a very important and valuable tool which can be used during a performance optimization exercise to find out bottlenecks and all that. So now, as I said, there is another add-on called extended status bar. So which will give you speed. What's the time a particular page has taken. For example, you just want to compare your results. So there is a speed before you have done the optimization, and there is a performance after which you have done the after you've done the optimization. So you can use this extended status bar to just record the speed that each page took to load, and you can compare whether there is an increase or decrease in the performance. So Wiselow you can use to really understand where the page is causing issues, where it is taking so much time, so that we can actually go and target that area and optimize it. So that's what I had to say about this. I will switch to the PPT. Okay. I think it's gone a little up once again. Sorry. So we discussed about Wiselow, Firefox extended status bar. As you see here in the screenshot, that's how it will come. Like it will say images, how much is loaded, what is the time, etc., etc. So next we will see about the XPages Tool Box. So this is available as a project in the OpenNTF, and it's a very useful tool which has got it has to be installed at the server. It has to be installed in the root directory of the server, and there are some instructions and there are defined steps that we need to do before when you are deploying this toolbox on your server. So you should make sure that it is deployed at the development server or deployed at the testing server only. Production, it's a strict no-no, because XPages Toolbox, it profiles your XPages activities irrespective of whatever the XPages application are running on the server. So it is very memory intensive, so it is strictly not recommended to use in production unless and otherwise it's a very critical and sensitive problem resolution that you need to do. Even in that case, you need to deploy it in the server and revert it back immediately, because it's very memory intensive. Even if it is there, it needs to be stopped after it has solved the purpose. So XPages Toolbox, it allows you to profile your CPU, memory, backend profiling, all your memory dumps, etc. The backend profiling will be very interesting. It gives you information as to how different methods are called in the backend, and what is the different, how many number of times it is called, and so on and so forth. I will also show the screen and show you some samples here. So this is a sample view of a CPU profiler. How it has to be done is like, so you can install the profiler and start. First, let me go to that screen so that it will be better to understand. Okay. So this is a homepage of XPages profiler. So you have this CPU profiler. So before starting your testing cycles, so you have to start the CPU profiler, start the backend profiler, start runtime monitoring, etc., and run your test. After you are done with the test, you have to stop it to record your results and analyze it. So I can start it, and this is a backend profiler. I said you can start before clicking on something. So if you really have to get accurate results, every time when you're clicking on a particular link, you have to start it, and once you're done with that, you have to stop it and see the results, store it somewhere, and then clear the results before you go to proceed with the next link. Otherwise, all the results will be mixed and you will not be able to completely identify. So these are some samples that I have just placed. If you click on one of these links, you can see how the backend profiling has profiled the different methods that has been called, and what is the time that has been taken, how many number of times it is called in that particular action. So basically, this profiles each action, so that if you know that a particular this thing is being called too many times, then you know that there is definitely some room for optimization there. So you can actually go to that piece of code and see how it can be optimized. Similarly, CPU profiler also is the same thing. So whichever expression is time consuming, you can go directly attack that particular piece of code so that you achieve maximum optimization. So I think this gives you a fair idea of how a profiler can be used. So we'll switch back to the presentation now. Okay, sorry. Okay. So this is a sample view of a CPU profiler. As you can see from the screen, it actually profiles different JavaScript functions that is being called and what is the total time it has taken and etc. Since you know that this has happened on a particular action, you can directly go to the script that is written in the action and see how it can be optimized. For example, if you can see from the picture, so there is something which takes some address new doc which takes like 1567 all timer in milliseconds. So you can directly go there and see how well you can reduce the number of times it is being called or how well you can optimize that. Similarly, this is the sample view of a backend profiler that I just showed you. If you can see from here, there is something called get all documents by key, which is being called 45 times in 2 places. So obviously, these are some places that we need to watch out for and go and optimize it. Probably, caching it or storing it in a variable so that it is available for use globally and all that. For example, like I can give you an example here. So we were working on a dashboard where there were different types of requests, like you can say A, B, C, D, E, which are listed in the left side in rows, and the status of each of the requests are listed in the columns. So this is kind of a dashboard that we wanted to display. So for each of these, normally we can do a get document by key. How many ever the count is there, we can display the number of requests in each status for different types. But if you're going to do this, then there will be like, if there are 5 rows and 6 columns, there are going to be 5 into 6 get all documents. So how can we reduce this? What actually prompted me to tell this was, at one time what happened was like, when I clicked on the dashboard, it will go on loading for some time, and finally I get to see only one type of request as all numbers, whereas the other types of requests had only 0. So the user had to wait for some time to find a 0. So these are some places where we can optimize. So initially itself we can check if there are only requests that are present in a particular type, then we can go ahead and finding out how many requests of different status for that particular type are there. So you can save that 6 or 5, how many ever lookups based on the fact that when there are no requests in a particular type, you can skip those requests. So that way it will improve the performance. So these kind of things can be noted from the backend profiler. So you can identify the places where either the function is taking too much time or it is being called too many number of times. Go back and see how it can be optimized. So this is how XPages Tool Box can be used to identify the places where optimization is possible. Okay. So now we will discuss more about the code level, application level optimization. As I said that performance performance will be affected on based on the size of the application, because higher the size of the application, more likely the application has large number of documents, and if there are too many views in that application, then the view indexes is going to create problems. So this has to be handled properly. This picture shows you how from the admin client you can just go to manage the views of this database, and it can tell you that how view indexes are or how much size view indexes are occupying. So in the particular application that I have shown here, of the total 4 GB, 94% itself is occupied by the view index space, view index sizes. So which means that something needs to be done about the views, otherwise as the application grows, the index will be growing too high. So how we can optimize it? We should look for views that are occupying too much of space and see if it is really required. So we have to make some kind of a compromise. So only have very purpose specific views, and if it is like really not required, then that view can be compromised. Other thing is, when we are working on application modernization, we tend to copy paste the views. For example, So if you're working on existing application, the existing application itself will have some views. Sometimes you'll be reusing the views, and some views need to be, new views will be created for the new purpose that we are doing. So if we copy paste the existing views and change them, they seem to increase the view index size. So it is recommended always not to copy paste the existing views if we are working on an existing application. Always create a new view and apply whatever column formulas or anything that you need to do so that the indexes are not increased and are not duplicated. This seems to have happened, like when we tend to copy paste the existing views, the indexes dramatically increase. So what we then did is like we rewrote all the new views that we have created by deleting them and dropping the indexes so that we were able to conserve some space from that. And watch out for aliases, duplicate aliases, because duplicate aliases, they tend to double the view index sizes. And there are also some golden rules that we need to follow. Remove unnecessary sorting or styling in the columns. Only where it is required, you have that sorting or styling enabled. For example, click on column header to sort, or accent sensitive sorting, or some kind of font level, color level styling in the columns. So this may be required for user views, but for hidden views which are mainly used for lookups, these kind of sorting or styling is not required. So turning this off gives you some space so that you require actually some amount of memory from that. And also avoid writing complex formulas in views, particularly date-related functions, date-related at now or at today in the views. They increase the loading time like anything. For example, the scenario that I can say is like, so if it's in a leave management application, you would be interested in knowing like, who is on leave for today, or who is on leave for this week, or who is on leave for this month, etc. So if we design our application by handling these kind of scenarios, by writing the formulas using at today and comparing the dates in the views, the time that it takes to load the application is very, very high. So it's always better to avoid these kind of formulas in the views. And the other way to handle is like, think about this at the design level itself. See how we can achieve this without, compromising the performance, without using these kind of complex formulas in views. One option could be like, whenever you submit a request, based on the dates, you have a field that calculates these kind of days or day or week within which it falls, and store it as part of the document itself, so that that can be used in categorizing the documents under that particular, whether it is today or this week or this month. So avoid writing these formulas directly in the views. So that affects the performance like anything. And also, if it is an existing application, take it from me, please do not copy paste the existing views and change it according to your purpose. It's always better create new ones and put in your column formulas there, and avoid these unnecessary sorting or styling in columns. After doing these changes in the views, you find that your view indexes are occupying so much of your application, and you have done these changes. After changing these, you need to do these 2 steps to free up your memory. Purge your indexes and do a copy style compact of your database and rebuild your indexes so that that extra memory that is being used was released, so that your application is fresh and seems to work fine without any issues. These are something that need to be taken care at the view level. So the next thing is, as you know, like what can be done at the lookups. Lookups, DB columns, DB lookups, and get document wiki are very highly time-consuming operations. So we should be very careful when using these. As I explained you before itself, you can use this toolbox to determine how well it is being used, or whether it is being used too much. And if that is the case, we can reduce the number of lookups by properly handling it in the application, either caching the results. If you know that there are not going to be too many changes, then you can always cache the results so that every new lookup doesn't hit a fresh one and tries to go to the cache and fetch it. You can also think of storing the results in a scope variable, whether it can be an application or session based on the usage. So overall, we should see how we can optimize the number of lookups that we are trying to use in the application. this actually gives a great deal in the performance. So the other area that we should concentrate on is the partial refreshes that we are using in the applications. So there are various options available in the partial refresh. I will just go to the designer and show you what are the options like. So this is just a simple page. So if you can see in the screen here, and the partial update. So there are three things: don't validate or update data, process data without validation, set partial execution mode. So if you check do not validate or update data, whatever changes that you do in that field, even though there is a partial update, it will not update any other field. And if you set the partial execution mode, it will update values moment there is a change in it. And if you press process data without validation, so normally in all these fields, I've just put in a sample here, all these fields there are validations written. So all these fields are marked as required fields and there is a validation message. If you don't check that property, so every time what it will try to do is it will try to validate whenever it tries to do a partial refresh, which is unnecessary. You know that you will be doing a validation at a later point. So you have to make a judgment as to whether to have that property checked or not so that you can save time on during the partial refreshes. Normally the partial refresh has to go hit the server and come back, so which might be time consuming. In some cases, I will also show an example here. So this is that partial refresh page. So I just refresh it. So this, as you see here, enter year of joining, it does not check for mandatory fields because the process data without validation is checked. So if I just say 2000 and come out, then it gives me the experience. So it doesn't validate the fields. Whereas if I do the same thing on the second name, that is the last name here, I just type some test value. Because I have these options not checked, it will try to validate the moment I come out. You can see the validation happening. So if you go back here, if you go back to that last name field, okay, you can see a partial update and it does not have any of these options checked, process data without validation. So it tries to validate before it can even update the value. What it has to do is it has to update the age to 40 or something. Since validations are failing, it is not updating. So if you know that you don't need to do validations, you can check this property and save a lot of time. So this is what I had to give about partial refreshes. So use those options prudently. So when you know that validations are not required and only data update is required, you can uncheck those options so that user is not frustrated about waiting too much to get some update on the screen. Even though it's a partial execution, it does still take some time in a real scenario when when it has to go to the server, which handles heavy load and so on. Also, there is one other important thing that we need to take care is, it is always better to disallow user action during partial refresh. Because what happens is, like you work on fields that are enabled for partial refresh and you go on filling other sections in the form. By the time the partial refresh request is come back, it will refresh that part and whatever the user has entered would be lost. So it's always better to log that area so that user is prevented from entering any information in order to prevent loss of data. Otherwise, the user might come back and complain that I entered something. Once the partial refresh is completed, then the values that I entered are refreshed again. So these kind of things can be avoided by displaying some loading indicator or something, and then you also need to take care of unloading that page whenever the partial refresh is completed. So otherwise, what will happen, that partial refresh would have completed, but the page will keep keep loading or displayed in the user even after the refresh is completed. So these things need to be taken care and should be used prudently depending on the scenario where you are trying to use, like do not validate or update data, process data without validations, etc. So other thing is how well we are using the scoped variables. We know there are different kind of scoped variables like application scope, request scope, session scope. So any variable that that is globally accessible to all the users can be stored as part of the application scope, so that when the information is available in the scope, that can be taken. Only when it is unavailable, it can do a fresh fetch to get that information. Scenario that I can think of is like if there is a Lookup DB that needs to be referenced from a particular database, that path can be stored as an application scope. So because all the users will be using that, so it need not have to be in session or this thing, because it needs to be globally available. So and the other is request scope, which is specific only for that request. So any query string related things can be set in the request scope. So the request scope will vanish the moment you do a refresh. So we need to be very careful in using those parameters. So the moment another refresh is done, so it will the value will vanish. And there is a session scope which will stay till the user session is live. So any user specific information can be stored in the session scope. Like for example, employee details. The moment employee is logged in, all these details can be fetched and stored in a scoped variable, so that it is available for use as long as the employee session is active. So these different scopes need to be properly used, so that we avoid duplicate DB columns or DB lookups or those kind of things. So this can also lead to improved performance because you're cutting down on the number of lookups that you will be doing. So if it's a redundant information, it can be fetched once and reused whenever it is required later. And the other important thing that we need to take care in our application is garbage collection. So when we are working on performance optimization, this is also an important factor which, when not handled properly, can cause memory leaks. So it is always better to use recycle on all Domino objects after using. So I've given a sample snippet here. So the first part shows how normally we would tend to write without taking into account the recycling part. So normally you go to the first document in the view and you just go to the next document and so on and so forth. Whereas the second part, I showed you how actually you can use recycle, so that you are explicitly setting the garbage collection, so that you will see this the first part. If it is running on thousands or lakhs of documents, at some point there is a possibility that there might be a memory leak, because you are trying to load too many documents in the memory, and at some point it would cross the limit and there will be a memory exception problem. So whereas if you use the second part, then and there recycle the Domino objects that we are using, we will be getting rid of these memory issues. So it's even more good if after the processing all is done, if we can recycle the view also, it is very good. Or we can use the recycle method to recycle all Domino objects. For example, if you're dealing with some IO objects and handles and all, I think we need to use flush and for example, some file handles, we need to close them so that the memory is released for garbage collection. So these things are specific to application code optimization. So we saw about what can be done at the view level, what can be done at the DB lookup or DB column, how we can use the scoped variables and so on. So that's all I have. So I just have a quick sum up before we run out of time. So we were mainly discussing about why we need performance optimization, because it plays a major role in user adoption. Higher the user adoption, the higher would be your success in the future projects also, so that more number of applications will be coming for your modernization or migration. So which means it will have a good impact for the company also. So what are the different things, and we also saw about what are the factors that contribute to performance, and what are the different configurations that need to be set at the server level and also at the application level. So server level, we have this hardware software configurations and setting on nodes.ini variables, and also setting of some Xsp properties either at the server level or the application level. So, and the other thing is, we also discussed about some of the tools that can come in handy during these performance optimization, like a toolbox, how we can use it, or a Wiselow or other Firefox extensions and how it can be used, or a Firebug which is normally used during the testing cycles and all the development unit testing cycles. At the application level, the different we also saw the different factors that contribute to the performance, like how the lookups are handled and how we are handling the views, and how the view sizes, index sizes can be reduced, and so on. So doing these changes will definitely improve the performance. Yeah, I have experienced it in my own executions. Like even after doing the server and the application level settings, we still found that without the documents the application was performing well, and with the documents there was a considerable drop in the speed. Then we know for sure that there is some way or there is some issue in the way that lookups and other factors that we said are handled. So we went on to do that kind of changes, after which we were able to get a considerable improvement in the performance, like partial refreshes and all. So that's all I have. I think everyone had a good time, and I could do justice to what I wanted to do today. So I would like to thank everyone for taking this time, and I appreciate your patience.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Lakshmi. We do have 4 questions. If you have just a couple of minutes to address these, and then we'll.
Okay.
Okay. First one is, we are running Domino 853 FixPax 2 on a Z-Linux. And what is the recommended memory allocation when running on Z-Linux?
Okay, I think for 853, 1/4 of RAM is sufficient. 1/4 of the available RAM can be set.
Okay, perfect. What is considered a high volume of concurrent users for a single XPage application?
Very difficult to actually quantify, but anywhere between 500 to 1,000, I would say.
Okay, between 500 and 1,000. Okay. XPages is very slow the first time we load every day. How can we avoid this issue?
There is one fix for this. There is an option called preload, which is available in 8.5.3 for Xpring applications. So you can preload the particular page so that all the resources are preloaded, so that the first time you open the page you will not see so much of difference in speed for Xpring.
Okay.
For web there is no preload option actually. So if we use those aggregation of resources and other things, the performance should improve.
Okay. Perfect.
I think it is better not to put a lot of scripting directly in the page. It's always better to move it in script libraries and then reference them in the page. The more clean your XPages, the more easier for it to load.
All right. Perfect. Thank you. What is the best practice rule for setting the XPages application timeout and session timeout if the session timeout is set to 2 hours?
Yeah, this is a very specific. The example that I was giving is a very specific scenario. So anytime between 30 minutes to a couple of hours is very valid. Only if it has to extend beyond like 2-3 hours, then I think we need to discuss with the admin, and there might be some policies which may not allow you to do that also.
Okay.
So anything between 30 minutes to 2 hours, I think it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, perfect. One last follow-up question. Is there a recommendation on how much RAM should be available on a Domino Z Linux server?
How much RAM?
For the server itself, yeah.
For the server itself. I'm not very sure about the exact size, but I think 4 GB to 6 GB is what we normally use, and that seems to be sufficient. So upwards 6 GB is always good.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, we are just about 5 minutes over time. If you do have other questions, you can simply pass them along to myself, and I'll get them to Marga Systems, and they can respond.
Yeah.
And I think, do you have one more slide or a couple more slides to show us?
Yeah, it's just the references, like because what we have dealt here is more on the implementation level. So if you need to understand really how the performance is achieved, so these are some of the references which gives you a lot of information about what actually goes inside the XPages lifecycle, the JSF lifecycle, and how the performance is achieved. So it gives you a better understanding.
Okay.
These are some of the references.
Perfect.
It actually deals in detail about the XPages lifecycle as such, different phases and all that.
Excellent. Okay. Well, again, Lakshmi, thank you very much for your time and your excellent presentation. And thank you for everyone for attending today. Again, we are recording this, and we will get an email out to you with the location of where you can watch the replay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
So,
yes, go ahead.
Once again, I thank everyone for their patience for the past 1 hour and hearing me. Thanks, Scott, for this wonderful opportunity.
You're welcome, and thank you, Lakshmi. Everyone have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.